So to begin the class, I want to tell you guys a beautiful thing that took place. This past week, my wife was supposed to speak at my daughter's, they were having like an Aliyah journey symposium. And they asked my wife to come to the school and talk about making Aliyah. But my wife is shy, unlike me, as you guys have told. And she asked me, can you do it instead of me? So I said, sure, but they don't speak English there, so it's going to be difficult. So he said, let me ask if you can. So they got me a translator, and Sunday morning I went in, after I taught you guys, and I went to my daughter's school. My daughter's 4 years old, her gan, and they were sitting in a circle, and they had like a little screen on the side with pictures from our trip on the airport to Israel. And the translator and the teacher, she asked me, why did you come to Eretz Yisrael? And my wife told me before the class, she said, David, listen, these kids are 4. Do not start telling them very deep things from ancient times, and don't speak for hours and hours. They don't have long attention spans, and they only understand very simple things. I said, no problem, let me think about it. So on my way, I was walking over, and also the night before, and it dawned on me, what would be the greatest way to explain in a way which is both simple, but infinitely deep, that will make an impression on their souls and hearts for the rest of history. So I came on to the Lost Princess. So when they asked me why I moved to Eretz Yisrael, why I wanted to make Aliyah with my family, I literally just told them the story of the Lost Princess. And throughout telling the story, the translator was translating it to the kids. So first of all, thank God, best decision I could have ever made. Otherwise, they probably would have been like picking their nose and rolling their eyes, and all the other stuff. I saw one person, she took her like dress and put it over her head. It's not so different than you guys, but it's just you guys like pretend a little better. And told the story, and you could see in their faces, these kids, as the story's going on, that they're literally being gripped by this story. It's so palpable for them how exciting and interesting and hopeful and wonderful, and it was amazing to watch these kids' faces. And then only like a couple of hours earlier, you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds coming together to learn the same exact story and having that same exact experience without maybe showing it in the same way. And this just goes to show the power of these stories, where Rabbi Nachman said before he actually told this story, that anybody who heard this story had a hirhor of tshuva. He wanted to get closer to Hashem. And when he said anyone, he meant mamash anyone, to the extent that he's talking about even little children and even adults, everybody. I'm trying to put everybody in the group. Just 1 second. Oh, here, that's why. There you go. Okay, yofi. And also at the end of the story, one of the kids the whole time, he was making faces like ooh, ah, oh, ah, oh. And then at the end of the class, when they had questions, the little kid said to the teacher to ask me, is this story true? And as he asked me this, I had like this like deep resonance with the fact that I just told them my story. In the beginning, I was telling them just to try to explain why we came to Israel. But as I was actually saying over the story, it really became clear to me, this is really my story. And this is really our story. And as I was saying it over and thinking about what was being said, it just became abundantly clear to me how much this has been my life since my childhood, and how this story is still continuing now. And so when the kid asked in Hebrew, is this story true? I looked him dead in the eyes and I said, you better believe it. And then his face was like this. He couldn't believe that the story was true. So anyway, thank God the story is true. And that was the beginning of my week. Okay? So that was a big, like, I think Hashem was trying to tell me, you're teaching it, it's very good, but don't forget, this is your life, and we're still going. The story's not over yet. Okay. So now, the Perush is going to explain that everything that we've learned so far, which is built up now to the concept of going down into exile, for the sake of retrieving lost sparks of godliness that fell at the beginning of creation. Now he brings a concept which was made famous by the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, where the Baal Shem Tov said, Kol ze yerida letzorech aliyah. And this is a fundamental concept in Chassidut, which is based on Kabbalah. There is no spiritual descent which is not subsequently followed by an ascent. Every descent is for the sake of an ascent. Every time you go down, it's for the sake of going up higher. This is a spiritual fact, like 2 + 2 = 4. And this is one of the most important things to keep in mind, not just as we go through these stories, but as you go through life. No matter how deep down it goes, no matter how many days or weeks or months or even years that the descent might be taking place, one needs to know and have in mind the entire time that however deep and painful this descent might be, that the ascent is going to be equally and actually even greater. Okay? Now, how is that possible? I can't fathom that, right? So that's why Emunah is so important. But there's actually no way to get to the ascent without first believing that the descent is for the sake of an ascent. So make sure as we're going through the story and also as we're going through life, we just keep in mind this fundamental teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, one of the most fundamental teachings that he has, and one of the most fundamental teachings of Chassidus, which is really the root and core of a lot of the teachings, which is that Yerida Litzorech Aliyah, every descent is for the sake of an ascent. Ki bezman shadam agia el nitzut shalo, because when a person finds this spark, which is directly and intimately connected to him, hem mitchabrim yechad ze im ze. The person, the soul, us, we attach with that spark and we unite this with this. Ki shnehem meshorash neshama echad, because they're really all from one neshama. So this is a very deep thing. So far we've said that the entire reason why the Jewish soul goes into exile is to lift up sparks of godliness which are trapped and captured in the space of the klipot. However, we have not discussed what is our inherent relationship with those sparks. It seems like so far we're just on a mission, right? That was from last week, which is true. We're on a mission. However, part of the reason why the mission is so personal for us is because, in fact, every single one of us is not whole, which I'm sure we've all felt. Why aren't we whole? Part of the reason we're not whole is because there's sparks of us that are captured. They're trapped. And when we go down into darkness, when we go into exile, and we're able to have an opportunity to lift up sparks of godliness which are trapped in that space, which, like we spoke about last week, could simply be, I have a negative thought. I'm ruminating on a negative thought. And not to think that this is just stam because I have psychological issues or because I've been through something and therefore I can't think of something else. It's because Mamash Chassidut teaches that every negative thought is a klipa. And trapped within that negative thought is a spark of godliness. And that's the whole reason why I'm struggling with it. So we gave technical ways of trying to lift up that spark. And it was through furthering our concentration and intensifying our tefillah at the time of the confusion. And by doing this, we lift up and elevate that spark. But really, it's through any of the mitzvot that you do. You lift up these sparks. So why am I going down to do this? Part of it is selfless. We signed up for this to be able to help the world. But on the other hand, part of it is actually very much self-rooted, and that is that we're never going to be whole until every spark, every piece, every shadow is uplifted, is illuminated and transformed. So when you have this negative experience, that spark of godliness which is trapped there is really a part of your soul. So this is the chiddush that we're discussing right now. Let's say, for instance, and even simpler, you're about to eat a banana, okay? So you make a bracha on the banana. There are sparks of godliness that are in that food. They're in any kosher food. They're actually, even in non-kosher food, the sparks of godliness. Aval, however, those sparks of godliness are trapped in the food that's not kosher, to the extent that if you eat it, you're not able to elevate it right now, which is the reason why it's called asur. Why is it called asur? Asur doesn't literally mean it's forbidden or you're not allowed to eat it. Asur means it's bound. Mutar means that it's unbound, it's untethered, it's released, right? It's capable of being uplifted and transformed. So when a food is mutar, it means that the sparks of godliness that are in there can be elevated and uplifted by you in this world. The fact that it is asur means that they're trapped there, they're bound there, to the extent that you're not able to elevate those sparks right now, even though there is sparks of godliness there. Because there can't be an entity in the physical world which is not illuminated with the life force of godliness. Otherwise, it would cease to exist. So when you go to eat a banana and you make a bracha, when you make that bracha and you try to eat mindfully, you are uplifting the sparks of godliness that are trapped in that banana. Okay? Now, why did I get this banana? Why did I pick up this banana from the store? How come I didn't pick up that other banana? So then somebody might tell you, because you just happened to pick up that banana. What kind of question is this? And why are we getting up so early in the morning to discuss this? But the deep answer is, the banana that you picked is the sparks of godliness which are in that banana are from the same root as your own soul. And that's the reason why you picked up that banana and that fruit. And so when you make a bracha and you eat that food mindfully, b'ezras Hashem, and it's kosher, you are actually uplifting a spark which is inherently connected and rooted in the same place as your own soul. Okay? And therefore, the more that we continue to do this, the more that we make ourselves more whole, the more that we make ourselves more shalem, more complete, and the Jewish people at large. And therefore, when a person suddenly has an arousal to do something holy, it's like, you know what, I want to do ibodedut. I want to go talk to Hashem. I just want to scream to Hashem. Or a person says, you know what, I really want to go learn Torah. Out of nowhere, he's working and he's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm working for hours and hours and hours. I can't work so much. I got to go learn. What is that feeling? Or for instance, he has like just feeling, this wellspring of, I want to say Tehillim. You know, I just want to pour my heart out in Tehillim. Whatever it is, any mitzvah. What is that feeling that before I didn't have this feeling and now I have this feeling? That through this mitzvah or this good deed that this person does, the reason why you have this arousal is because Hashem is trying to give you a signal or a signpost that there is an opportunity for you to elevate a spark which is inherently rooted in the same place as your own soul. So the reason why you didn't have that arousal 5 seconds ago, and now all of a sudden you have this deep arousal, is because, in fact, you have an ability, Hashem is now giving you a reshut to go uplift a spark which is rooted in your own soul. This is the reason why Rabbi Nachman says that as soon as a person has an inspiration to go do any mitzvah, he shouldn't wait at all. And part of it might seem like is because he's trying to practice, get us to practice having zrizut, having alacrity, running after spiritual matters, trying to put our heart and our souls into it. And that's true. But the reason why Rabbi Nachman was so insistent on it, and the reason why he in his lifetime, it's just documented, that people said that whenever a mitzvah came up for him, even if he had planned for something else, he would drop everything that he was doing and go do this mitzvah. And he suggested to us to do the same thing. Why? Is it because YOLO, yeah? There's like no time like now. We're not going to get tomorrow. Tomorrow's not going to be like today. It's because be'emet, in truth, the mitzvah that came up for you, the spark of godliness which is available to you, that arousal that you have to go do it right now is a signpost that I have an ability to elevate the spark of godliness, which I may not get later. Now is the time. Now the spark is in a place, it's in a space where it is where it's able to be released. And that's the real reason why you got this arousal to do this mitzvah. So now go take advantage of it. Go do it. Hayom, right now. Because both the spark and your soul are attached in the same place. And therefore, when this spark of Kedusha, when this spark of godliness is reminded of its high place, and where it's ultimately going to find itself, where it's ultimately going to go, that be'emet, in truth, it's engraved in the kisei kavod. So, according to Kabbalah, every soul is rooted in what's called the kisei kavod. What it literally means is the throne of glory, okay? Now we know that there is no physical matter in spiritual reality. So what does it mean that our souls come from the kisei kavod? So in Kabbalah, they explain that the kisei kavod is the world, the olam of Bria. There are four main spiritual worlds: Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, and Atzilut. The second to highest, right below Atzilut, is called Bria. It's a very, very high world. It's above this physical world entirely. And that is in fact, it's above where the Malachim, the angels, are coming from also. This is where the Jewish soul comes from. As well, these sparks of Kedusha, these sparks of godliness, which you have now been aroused to elevate, which have fallen and trapped at the beginning of creation, those are also coming from the Olam of Bria, from the world of creation, from the Kisei Kavod. And he's adding this unbelievable point that as soon as this spark of godliness is aware of the root of its existence and the place to which ultimately it's destined to go, it automatically wants to run back to Hashem. Now, we know that these sparks of godliness are not just in food, and they're not just in, let's say, different physical matters when we go to do a mitzvah. But those sparks of godliness are even souls of Jewish people, because every single one of our souls is a spark. Like the Arizal teaches that Adam HaRishon, he was a whole collective soul for all of history. And that soul broke up into a million different pieces, which is why we don't feel whole. And over the course of history, these pieces get released. And this is the secret of the Gemara that says that Mashiach will not come until all the souls are released from the womb. Meaning all of the sparks are finally released and able to actualize the purpose of their existence. Because we need all pieces of an entity in order to be whole. But this is going to take place over the course of time. But we're learning here something very beautiful. The Baal Shem Tov, he used to rebuke those who rebuked others, which a lot of people don't know, because when they think about the Baal Shem Tov, they think about a lot of love, a lot of kindness, a lot of empathy, a lot of fighting for freedom and joy and fighting for the oppressed. And he was that and much more. But they don't know that at the same time, he was also very charif when he needed to be. When he spoke to people who were trying to get Jews to do tshuva, but they did so by trying to scare the person or scare the community. He would make sure that they knew that this was not only not effective long term, it was also very, very damaging. So what does the Baal Shem Tov encourage? What does he say is the most effective way to help others come back to Hashem? We're learning from this that when you show somebody how great their soul is, when you show somebody that the root of their essence is coming from a place that completely transcends this physical world and everything in the spiritual world, and even though they may not have experienced it, even though they may not know it, even though they may not relate to anything that you're saying, it makes no difference, because the root of this person's soul, this Jew's soul, is coming from an infinitely high place. And ultimately that soul is going to go back there as well. That he will transform his life and everything in it, and he will elevate it back to this lofty root of his soul. That this is the most effective way to encourage a person to want to come back to Hashem. Because the nature of sparks of godliness is that one of the main reasons that they're trapped is because they don't know where they're from and they don't know where they're going. But as soon as this spark knows where it's coming from, As soon as that Jewish soul knows where it derives its life force, its energy, its root power from, that it comes from this lofty place, that even though it's been through the almost unbelievable, horrific things in its life, and it's still engaged in it right now, it doesn't change at all the root of his soul and where it comes from, and also where it's going. And as soon as he hears it, he runs back to Hashem. Not just like, okay, let me think about doing this mitzvah. Okay, let me think about doing this Torah learning and finding something else out. No, he starts to be on fire. He starts to have hidlavut. He wants to be that thing. Everybody wants to be their greatest self. But when a person does not know that their greatest self is something epic, it's something transformative, it's something that the whole world is waiting on, so they have no inspiration to go do it. I'll just give you a practical example. My son went to his friend's house Friday. We were all taking a nap before Shabbat. Thank God Shabbat's starting a little bit later now. We have a little bit of time in between to get rested, to feel good before Shabbat. But my son does not nap. He goes and plays with his friend. So when he came back from his play date, he came in, and I was in the middle of about to start Shnai Mikra, which is a mitzvah from the rabbis, from Chazal, to do. And the Arizal says that the best time to do this is Friday before Shabbat, and then to proceed to go to the mikveh, cut your nails, go to the mikveh. And this is a huge tikkun. Rabbi Nachman speaks about in the 19th lesson, L'Kutei Moharan. Anybody who wants more information on that, I'm happy to give it. It's a practice that I've been doing now for a while, thank God, and I feel it's like a whole different Shabbos when you go into it. So as I'm about to start to do this and my family's sleeping, my son comes into me and he says, Abba, can I go watch a show at my friend's house? So he doesn't have a TV in his house. My wife and I made a decision that we didn't want a TV in our house. We want them to be encouraged to use their minds and to act in ways that cultivates their own internal processes, as opposed to it being feeded to them. We also don't mind if there's some type of program that we feel like is going to be good for them, it's going to educate them. We're not anti-technology, as you can tell. Technology can be a messianic thing, but it's about how you use it. And therefore we're very careful with our kids and what we let them watch or don't watch. So I know that this person that he's at this house, they're not so dati, they're not so connected in a explicit way yet. And so I know that the things that are on their TV are not necessarily going to be good for my son. So I told him that he can't. And he got very upset and he said, I don't understand, these people have a TV and these people have a TV, why can't I watch? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my worst nightmare. I don't want to have this conversation, you'll understand. Whatever, so I tried to explain to him why this wouldn't be good for him. And he's 5.5 years old, okay? Almost 6. And he hears, and I can see his eyes like welling up. His tears are welling up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate this. Finally, he's like, okay, fine. He goes back upstairs. I don't know what he did after that, Bezrat Hashem. He didn't, but who knows, okay? So now, later on, I take my son with me to the mikveh before Shabbat. So on the way, that's like time for him to spend time alone and to talk. And on the way back from the mikveh, I told him the story of when my cousin was in the coma, and how the doctors had pretty much given up on him and his family didn't think he was going to make it. And ultimately my aunt called me to tell me what was going on, because I'm the only one in my family who's dati, and asked me if I can pray for him. And what ultimately happened is, for most of you guys know, but if you don't know, I ended up praying the most intense prayer of my life next to his bed. He woke up from the coma. He spoke to the doctors after. He attends dinner for miracle survivors every year. He lights Shabbat candles every week now. He literally had a miraculous recovery. It was a nace. It was literally a nace. And as I was telling my son this whole story, I could see his eyes start to light up. And I told my son, do you see why I want you to learn Torah? Do you see why I want you to pray to Hashem? Do you see why I want you to love every Jew? Do you see why I want you to connect in matters which are really good for you like this? Because my son, Shiloh Chai, you have the ability to be the tzaddik Yesod Olam, the tzaddik that's the foundation of the world, that every single one of your tefillahs is answered. You have the ability within you, you're a Jew, that if you try your very best to do the things that Hashem wants and to be a good person, you have this special ability that when you pray, Hashem is going to answer you. Can you imagine what that would be like? You have people around you that they need you, right? Like I told them, your grandpa, Papa, he's sick, he's not well. Can you imagine, Shiloh, if you were so holy, you were so kadosh, you were so tahor, you were so pure, that when you ask Hashem, please heal my grandfather, heal my Papa who's been sick for 10 years, Hashem's going to answer you. I said to him, what do you think is greater, that or watching 30 minutes of a cartoon? And at almost 6 years old, he told me, I'd rather be able to pray, and Hashem hears me and answers me. And right after that, he said, Abba, I want to come with you to shul tonight. He told me at nighttime he wants to come with me in the morning. For an hour straight, he was at Arvit with people who are 30 years old, 40 years old, 5 years old, sitting in the back, praying for an hour straight in his siddur. Now you notice that in the beginning, when I told him all the negative effects of watching TV, how it wouldn't be good for him, it just hurt him. And he felt like he was missing out. And on the other hand, when I told him what is the root of my son's soul, what he could potentially do in his lifetime, who he can affect, how he can help, where he comes from, where he's going, a 5.5-year-old got lit up on fire and said, I want to be as close to Hashem as possible. I want to go pray as much as I can. I want to go to shul. I want to go do this. Why? Because this is what we're learning right here, a very deep yesod. When a Jewish neshama knows the root of his existence, where he comes from, what he's capable of being, he wants to run to Hashem. And the most effective thing is to show people who they truly are, not to scare them, not to make them feel bad, not to inundate them with overwhelming facts about how secular world is destroying the world and secular wisdom is this. Like, okay, there's a time and a place for everything, and in a certain space, there's a place to be able to show them the depths of how far these things go. But there's a way to do it. But ultimately, the beginning of the end always have to be couched in this very deep yesod. And that is, who are you? Where do you come from? Where are you going? That is the key to everything. And the Baal Shem Tov says, as soon as a person chaps this, he automatically wants to be close to Hashem. So it's not just a long-term, more effective. It's the only real thing. This is something totally different, okay? Now it's brought here. And then this spark yearns to leave from this place as soon as he knows. He is enlivened, he's aroused with a tremendous power and a very strong yearning. Because all of the sparks of Kedusha, all of the sparks of godliness that this person has acquired over his lifetime, right? Because a lot of times, most of the times, the Torah says that a Jew is like a pomegranate. He has so many mitzvot, even if he's called a person who is detached from Hashem. Why? Because Jews are good people. So you're all the time, you're helping a person across the street, you're working for a non-for-profit, trying to help people on a volunteer basis. You have another person, part of a clinic that has a 24/7 suicide hotline. You have another person who's, right? And this person, you're doing all this your whole life, working at this camp for autism, trying to help these people. You have Jewish people their whole entire lives doing these beautiful things, trying to help people because they don't know it's a mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. Of course it's a mitzvah. So they're doing all of these things for decades, right? What happens to all those things? How come they don't taste those things? Why don't they see Hashem in those things? Because all those sparks are trapped. So they're all being pulled out. They're all for sure being extracted from the place that they're in. But they're not able to go up to Hashem. And that's the reason why they're not able to experience it, because of the other parts of their life. But once they do tshuva, once they see where they come from and where they're going, and they decide and they yearn to want to go back to that place, one of the reasons why they have this incredible yearning to go is because all the sparks of Kedusha which they have accrued over their lifetime, all are now yearning to go back with him. So it's not just him that is aroused to come home. It's every good thing that he ever did is joining together with him to get and to run back to Hashem. And that's the reason why the Baal Tshuva's love, says the Tanya, is much more intense than a person who's been religious from birth. That the Tanya tries to explain what is the essential difference between the Baal Tshuva and a person who's frum, who's religious, who's always been. So he says essentially, and this is the secret of the Gemara, that a religious Jew, a tzaddik, can't stand in the same place as a Baal Tshuva. The reason is because the love of a Baal Tshuva for Hashem is infinitely greater than a person who's a tzaddik. What's the reason? Because he has all of these sparks of godliness which are trapped in the klipot. Even though he has all these sparks because he did all these good things in our life, but they're all trapped, they're all repressed, they're all imprisoned. And when this person is aroused to want to return to who he is, that he could be something so great that the whole world depends upon him, it's not just him who chaps that. It's every good thing he ever did. And Rabbi Nachman says all of those things join together at the same time, and they skyrocket you back to Hashem. And I had this personally in my life, that for 15 years I'm a staunch atheist. I'm trying to convince people, unfortunately, about Sorry, 1 second. There is some technical difficulties. Okay, so we'll just continue the class here until it comes back on. One second. Let's see. Okay. Wow. The Satan does not want this class to come out. The internet has went out. I will continue the recording over here. So please listen at home. So we're saying like this. Everything comes back together at the same time. And for me, as being a self-proclaimed atheist for my whole life, and then all of a sudden realizing where I come from and where I'm going, I was aroused to the extent that I wanted to keep all the mitzvot like in one moment. Oh, here we are, back on, Baruch Hashem. Hey guys, can you hear me? Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me? Good, okay. So this only means that this class is really important, okay? So really pay attention. Everyone should know that whenever you try to teach Rabbi Nachman's teachings, it's never easy. And the more powerful the class and the more important it is for you, the less easy it's going to be, okay? So this is a good sign for us. So what ended up happening was because of all of the good things that I had done in my life, even though it was immersed in so much darkness, that when I read my first book on Chassidut and I realized the infinite root of my soul, where I come from, where I'm going, it wasn't just me that had an arousal on that night and decided I want to keep Shabbat, and then soon after Kashrut, and want to come back to Hashem and try to help everybody do the same. Every single good thing that I ever did in my life was all aroused at the same time to return back to its root. And this is the reason why the koach of the Baal Tshuva is so intense. because all of the averot become mitzvot. All of these sparks of godliness that were trapped, they all become elevated in one moment. And this is why Rabbi Nachman often says, even if you're struggling, even if you don't feel like you're making progress, even if you feel like adrabah, it's the opposite, there's not one good thing that's forgotten. Every good thing that you do is remembered. And at the time that you need it the most, Rabbi Nachman says all of those good things are going to gather together and they're going to help you skyrocket and elevate beyond the place that you're in. So just hold on tight, keep doing good, keep being a good person, keep striving to grow spiritually, even if you're struggling. And then when you need it the very most, it's all going to come together for you and help you move beyond to the next place that you need to go to. Until you reach the root of your soul. To Hashem Yibarach. מכיוון שהנפש הישראלית מחוברת עם הניצוץ הזה, על כן גם האדם מצטרף לכל העליות האלו. Therefore, this person, he joins together and he has an aliyah. וזוכה גם הוא לעליות גדולות ועצומות מאוד. And it's so strong because it's attached to the spark of godliness, which is also wanting to get back to its root. והקדוש ברוך הוא שמח עמו. And Hashem is very happy with him. Shasa et shlichuto, that he achieved the purpose of his life at this moment. Because what are we here for? We just said, every moment that we're here is to collect these lost sparks. So when you decide to go down into the darkness and to help your brother or sister to come out of the place that she is trapped in, or more specifically or personally, when you are going to do a mitzvah and you are unlocking a spark of godliness, or even when you have a foreign thought or a negative emotion or some type of damaging action, and you decide to find the good in that place and to work on reorienting yourself to the good within that space, then that spark and you go back up together. And Hashem is very, very happy. Why? Because in that moment you achieved the purpose of your mission. And when the Jewish people have collectively retrieved and elevated all of these sparks, there will be geula, there will be redemption. And Hashem will be very, very happy. Why? Because Hashem is happy when, just like if you put somebody on a mission and they complete the mission, you tell your son, hey, can you go wash the dishes? And then unbelievably so, he washes the dishes. And he says to you, Abba, I finished washing the dishes. How happy you are. So too, Kivyachol, so to speak, when a Jew achieves the purpose of his life, which is to achieve these lost sparks, anytime he does so, Hashem is very, very happy with him. And this is the reason and the extent to which, when you specifically go to help Jewish people that are struggling very much, whether it's people who are far spiritually, or maybe they're doing the mitzvot, but they're far psychologically, right? But when you help struggling Jews, and you try to bring them and help elevate them from the place that they're in, especially and all the more so if it's a darker place, and you go down with them into that darkness in order to help and elevate them out, then it says that Hashem is very, very happy with you. He has tremendous simcha and joy from you. Why? Because that's our mission. And you arouse the spark of Kedusha from its exile. And it's not just that person who's benefiting or that spark that's benefiting. You're also benefiting. Why? Because you and that person are actually rooted in the same soul. And that's the whole entire reason why you have this ability, you have this opportunity to help them, whereas somebody does not. You know, Rabbi Nachman often spoke about, how do I know who's the root of my soul? Who's the teacher that I should be learning from? Who's the person who's going to elevate me? Who's the person who's literally the shoresh of my neshama? So he said, who empowers you? Who encourages you? Who, when you hear him speak, you feel enlivened, you feel excited, you feel there's hope, you feel there's purpose, you feel there's joy, you feel that there's real thing as Hashem and spirituality, that I have a meaning in my life, that there's something for me to work towards. If you feel that there's a person like that for you in your life, he's likely a root of your soul. And the whole reason why he's teaching you is because you both are rooted in the same higher soul. And therefore, when he's elevating you, or you're elevating him, or she's elevating her, and so on and so forth, It's not just because coincidentally I happen to be on the same Zoom chat with them. It's because be'emet, in truth, all of our souls are very, very connected. Very much so. And even though we're all different ages and we come from all different backgrounds and we're all over the world, that some people in this chat are from Canada and some are from America, some are from Eretz Yisrael, some are from England, some are from all over. Mamash, it's unbelievable. It's insane. I saw in a video yesterday, someone from Kenya was asking a question. Yeah, so it might look like this is just a technological coincidence, but it's not the case. All of our souls are directly, intimately connected, and that's the reason why we're all united and trying to grow together, because all of the sparks of our soul are coming from the same place. And therefore, when you try to help another Jew, this shouldn't be the reason why you're doing it, but ultimately you also get elevated when they're elevated. Because be'emet, that spark which is trapped within them is really a spark of your own soul. And this is the reason why the Baal Shem Tov says how chaval it is that people who are Talmidei Chachamim, people who learn Torah day and night, why? All for the sake of knowing Hashem more, which is a beautiful thing. But the Baal Shem Tov said, how chaval is it that they don't realize that the greatest secrets of Torah are revealed to the person who has Mesir Nefesh for the Jewish people. The person who sacrifices himself and his vested interests in order to help and elevate fallen Jewish people. That this person is going to experience the greatest knowing of Hashem. Well, where did the Baal Shem Tov get this from? Kabbalah. Because that person who he's helping is a spark of godliness. And when he helps that spark, he elevates that spark, that arouses a reciprocal deepening of the knowledge of God. And so he's saying, even the people who are learning day and night, if only they knew that even the main reason why they're doing so, they could achieve at a higher level if they had a time in their day, or even just when they're approached by others, if they responded in a way that was kind, in a way which was empathic, that they decided, I want to go help Klal Yisrael, I want to go down into the depths and lift them out from their place, even though it's hard, even though it's difficult, even though it's not as convenient as sitting in a Beit Midrash with air conditioning and having tea in front of me, taking my shoes off and putting my socks out. Not saying that everybody's like this, but it's a beautiful thing to learn, and it's not easy to learn Torah at a high level and to keep steiging and to really keep your mind focused. I'm not trying to belittle that at all. It's an amazing thing. It's a huge thing. The whole world depends on it. But on the other hand, it's not always that. And sometimes it's also, I don't want to go out of my comfort zone. I don't want to be bothered with things that I don't want to be bothered with. I don't want to go help another person when I myself could grow. There is some of that, or there's a lot of that. But the Baal Shem Tov is saying how chaval it is that this person who joins Kollel to begin with, he's learning Torah to begin with to know Hashem greater. He could actually know Hashem more by helping that person who comes to him in the middle of his learning and say, hey, can you help me out with something? I'm just trying to figure out what is the mitzvah of going to the bathroom and washing my hands. How do you do that? And this person's like, why don't you go ask somebody on the street, they know how to do this, right? But you're wrong. You missed out an opportunity, even for yourself, because that person came to you because he is a spark of your own soul. Go help him. You'll also be helped. And through this kol avonot shasa kol shanim, and through this all of the averas that a person does in their lifetime, all of the mistakes and errors that she makes, nechafim lezuchiot, they're all transformed to merits. V'akadosh Baruch Hu mishalem lo schar gadol, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu recompenses him with a tremendous reward. Midat rachamim, from his quality of compassion, from his quality of rachamim. Keneged ma shasa chesed shel emet. Why? Because he's doing chesed shel emet. He's doing kindness from a place of truth, which we know that this is the greatest thing for Hashem. It says, give truth to Yaakov and give love to Abraham. Why does it say both of them? The stamp of Hashem is truth. We know that. But on the other hand, we also know that Hashem loved Abraham more than anybody. He was the greatest revelation of godliness. So what was Abraham? Abraham was love. Well, which one does Hashem want more? Rabbi Nachman says he loves both. He loves love and he loves truth. When does he love them? When they're together. So what is the greatest act of love? It's an act of loving kindness, which is rooted in truth. That is, it's not for my own self-interest. I'm not doing this to help them because they're going to pay me back later. I'm not getting my wife ice cream from the store in the middle of the night so that the next day I can ask her for a favor, right? I'm doing it for her because I love her, because she's asking me for it, because she wants it. I'm doing it for her. If I'm doing it for her, that's chesed shel emet, because I'm not deriving benefit from it. I'm not looking to do that. So too for us as well. V'yered l'taken et nitzot hakadosh mina klipot. And we descend to rectify this spark of kedusha in that place. That is called chesed shel emet. That's called an act of kindness that's true. And when you do that, Hashem recompenses you tremendously. The Gemara actually says, why is it that a person who's a Talmid Chacham, a person who is a sage, he has a son who doesn't become like that? And they come out saying, because that person needs to be busier helping other people's sons do the same. And if he does so, his son will also turn out like that. So too for us on a practical level, what we're learning is Hashem gets the most nachat from a Jew trying to help other Jews who are struggling. This makes Hashem happier than anything. And while on the other hand, that person might be struggling and thinking to themselves, like me this past week, as I'm traveling hours to get to Aish and hours to get back in Yerushalayim, taking multiple buses, and then even like the bus schedule is all messed up. So I'm walking for 45 minutes or an hour afterwards in brand new ways that I couldn't imagine. Literally, it's probably 4 hours of travel, 4 to 5 hours of travel there and back by buses and by foot. Also, I can teach Rabbi Nachman's Torah, Chassidus, for half an hour, 45 minutes. And for me, it's worth it. Because there's nothing that's more precious in the world than helping one Jewish soul know who they are, know where they're going, know who they could be, know who they're destined to be. There's nothing more precious. But on the other hand, it's very hard. And that person who's struggling to do so is going to have a lot of difficulties come their way. Because this person is not just a person. He is a spark of godliness which is trapped in the klipot. And when you want to extract that spark, it's not easy. It's trapped there. That's literally trapped. So what happens? You're thrown over by doubts and you have obstacles. And I remember at the end of this past week, doing this every day, getting barely any sleep. I was in my hibodedut in the forest because my car is also broken. It's in the shop. So I usually use my car to either go to a place that I'm alone or I do it in my car that I'm alone. I didn't have that ability. So I literally asked, like, Hashem, please, you have to find me a place that I'm completely alone. I don't know where it is. I'm just going to start walking. And thank God I found a place in the mountains. It was beautiful. And I was screaming and I was crying. And I said, Hashem, I will do this and I'll continue to do this. And it's my greatest chut and it's worth everything to me. But at the same time, I need to know you actually want me to do this. That you don't want me doing something else. Something that you feel would be more beneficial for other people. Something that you feel would help me to achieve what you brought me here for. I just want what you want. But I never heard from you before. I didn't speak to you. And my Rabbi, unfortunately, passed away. And even though he tells me in all of his Torah lessons what he wants from me, but it would be just nice to hear from somebody, David, you're doing good. This is what Hashem wants you to be doing. I have no idea. I'm doing the best that I can, but do I really know? I know for sure this is exactly what Hashem wants me to do. I don't know. We'll finish with this past Shabbat, Friday night, after praying like this, having this hispodedus. I was learning Tikkuni Zohar. Rabbi Nachman says in the Likutei Moharan that a person, B'davka, specifically on Shabbat, should learn the deepest Torah he could find. Okay? This is a very simple eitzah. When you're on Shabbat and the day comes in for you, specifically, if I decide I have certain books that I want to learn on Shabbat, learn the deepest books you can find. Obviously, they have to be based in truth. Don't get something from a place where it's very deep, but it's not kosher. But if you can find something which is really rooted in Torah, which is rooted in Kabbalah and Chassidut. Rabbi Nachman says the best thing you could do is learn that thing on Shabbat, for many reasons, okay? So I have a Seder that I learned Tikkuni Zohar on Shabbat. And I just want to tell you what I read. Essentially, it was speaking about a person who he learns Pshat. He learns the simple levels of Torah. He learns Mishnayot, he learns Halacha, he learns Gemara. He's considered Hashem's child, like the eggs of a bird. But we know that there's a special mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen. It's a chok. A chok means it's a mitzvah which is super conscious. It's beyond normative intellectual understanding. This is one of those, because it seems like a very cruel act. That when you see a bird on his eggs, and she's hovering over, there's a mitzvah to shoo the bird away. So it seems very cruel. However, the Torah promises, literally explicitly, that it will give you a long life. And we know a long life is not just physical life, it means spiritual life. So the Tikkuni Zohar explains that when a person is busy only with the revealed levels of Torah, then he is like the child under the wings of the Shekhinah. And when the klipot come and the forced negativity come, they shoo the bird away. And he doesn't feel the Shekhinah is taking care of him. He doesn't feel that level of safety. He doesn't feel that level of comfort that he's being watched over. Because at some level, she's departing from him. She's in exile from him. But it says that the Mari Kabbalah, those people who are busy learning the secrets of Torah, that they are like the first part of the mitzvah, where it says, B'dafka, that when you see this bird on its eggs, do not shoo that bird away. Make sure that the bird stays with the eggs. And the Tikkuni Zohar says that this is for the masters of Kabbalah, meaning the people who learn the secrets of Torah, Chassidut and Kabbalah. Why? Because those people know the depths of what it means that the Shekhinah is in the dust. And because the Tikkuni Zohar says they know what it means that the Shekhinah is in exile, they want to sacrifice their lives to be able to lift her out, even if it means that they themselves go into exile as a result. And because of this, it says that the Shekhinah goes down into exile with you. So while you're trying to lift her out, she's trying to lift you out. And then all of a sudden, it's like the bird over her eggs, that she's protecting them, watching over them, won't leave them, fights vigorously for them. Why? Because those eggs are fighting for her. So as I was reading this, the next morning I woke up, and my wife came over to me in the morning, is like, David, you got to see this. And I'm like, okay, fine. So she takes me and she brings me into my kids' room. And she shows me on the windowsill, all my kids are looking at the windowsill. I'm like, what's going on over here? So I went to the windowsill and I literally see a fully made nest with eggs, little tiny eggs, and a mother bird hovering over the eggs. I got the chills. And my wife said to me, let's do Shiluach HaKen. Let's shoo the bird away. It's a tremendous mitzvah. And I'm like, first I got very excited, but then like my throat started to, like I felt something to come up because it felt so cruel. I'm like, how can I do this? This is her babies. They're right in front of me. Like I had to leave. I had to think about it. I'm like, Hashem, you really want me to do this? I don't know. Let me just find out, make sure I'm doing it properly. So I went to shul. I spoke to a halachic authority, and he told me that in truth, it's not my chiyuv. Because the windowsill is a part of my property, theoretically, and the only time this mitzvah becomes a mitzvah is when it's in a place of hefker, it's ownerless. In an ownerless space, if you see this bird with these eggs, then the mitzvah becomes incumbent upon the person. But as long as you own this place or you own this space and you see the nest there, then it's not a chiyuv for you, it's not a mitzvah for you. And he said, therefore, in Israel, when you have these windowsills are a part of your apartment, and therefore you own it or you're renting it. It's part of your space. It's not ownerless, so there's no mitzvah to shoo the bird away. And then he said, and even if you decided you wanted to make yourself this chiyuv because you want to do the mitzvah, and you declare that space ownerless, which you can do, but the truth is you can't because you don't own the apartment. It's owned by the building. So I went back from there with a sigh of relief, because I really didn't want to separate the bird from the eggs, even though I know it's a big mitzvah. And then when I got home, I realized, and it hit me, this that I learned the night before, this that I prayed for during the day, that I cried to Hashem for. Hashem, help me to see that you're with me, that you want me to do this, that this is important for you, that this is important for me, that I couldn't use my energies elsewhere in a more beneficial way for those around me, because I don't mind. I'm going to fight for you every moment of my life if this is what you want, but I need to know it's what you want. And then he sends me the nest and the bird. And I read in Tikkun Zohar that when a person is not busy learning Chassidut and Kabbalah, then yeah, it's a mitzvah to shoo the bird away. But when a person is busy learning the depths of the Torah, learning the secrets of the Torah, becoming well aware of the Shekhinah that's in the dust, that's in exile, and becomes prompted to do everything that he can in acts of self-sacrifice to lift those Jews out of the dust, then the Tikkun Zohar says, then it's the first part of that pasuk. Don't shoo the bird away. Leave the bird with the kids. Because the Shekhinah does not want to leave you. The Shekhinah is protecting you. So with that, I would encourage everybody to think about this week, that when they have these different abilities, these capacities to help Jewish people, and even on a more personal level, to simply do mitzvot and lift up sparks, or even on a more personal level, that when I'm clouded by negative thoughts or negative emotions, negative actions, to understand that the only reason this is coming up for me is because there's a spark of godliness that's trapped here. And so therefore, when I elevate this thing, I'm also going to elevate my own soul, because my soul and this spark are actually coming from the same place. And the way that Hashem is giving me this signpost that I have a spark available to me is when I'm aroused to go do it. When this person comes by me and I have this arousal to go help this person. When I have this mitzvah in front of me that right before this class I wasn't interested in doing it, but now all of a sudden I want to go scream to Hashem and ask for help. Right? Because I realize He's with me. He never left me. He's like the Shekhinah, the bird that's hovering over those eggs and doesn't want to leave. And even when we saw the bird, it would like go to the side. But even when it went, it was only for a moment and it came back. And it was literally hunched over, like in a protective stance, not wanting anything to happen to these. That's Hashem with you right now. To realize you have an opportunity to lift up another part of yourself. And this is what I would suggest to everybody and encourage everybody. What does elevate actually mean? Okay, so elevate, it means different things depending on different ways. So far that we've learned that according to Kabbalah and Chassidut, the greatest elevation of a spark of godliness is through tefillah. Rabbi Nachman says in the 5th lesson of Likutei Moharan, what does that Gemara mean? That famous Gemara that says, the whole world was created just for you. So Rabbi Nachman, he was very empowered by this, like anybody who hears this statement. But he was also Lamaisa. He wants to know, what does that practically mean? Okay, the world was created for me. For what? Like, okay, yes, beautiful. The whole world was created just for me. But it's in the Gemara, so there has to be some practical output of that. What can I do? How can I utilize that to get closer to Hashem, to bring others closer to Hashem? So Rabbi Nachman teaches in the 5th lesson of Likutei Moharan that the whole world is created just for you, that you should look for what's lacking in the world. And you should look to fill that lacking through tefillah. This is what he says. That essentially every lacking in your personal life, and every lacking in your family, every lacking in your financial state, every lacking in your community, every lacking in the world is really a lacking of prayer. It's a lacking of tefillah. You can imagine like a vacuum, a void, a space, and it needs something to fill it up in order that it should be whole. It gets filled through heartfelt tefillah. So Rabbi Nachman says, what does it mean the whole world was created for you? It was created for you that you should fix it, that you should heal it, that you should rectify it. How do you do that? You do it by praying for the lack. And now we can understand, why did Rabbi Nachman say it's a good idea to talk to Hashem for an hour a day? It wasn't just so that you can get some type of psychological relief or a break from the monotony of the day. it was also because the purpose of one's life is to know that the whole world is created just for you, that you should then utilize that understanding to go heal and fix the world. And the way you do so is by searching for, investigating the lackings of the world and the lackings within yourself, and to pray to fill those lackings. And in doing so, you lift up the sparks of godliness that are trapped in that place. Bezrat Hashem will continue the questions that we have through the chat. Again, I encourage everybody to go on and to be a part of the group. The more that we can have sichat chaverim, the more we can be friends, the more that we can get close to Hashem. Be'emet, in truth, I'll tell you, I actually spoke to my neighbor. Just happens to be that his father was a big time Breslauer Chassid, and he was actually the one who created that logo that everybody knows about with the Eish, with the fire, and it says Eish Shali, the fire should burn until the coming of the Mashiach. He was actually the one who created that logo a while ago, but it became famous recently, and then everybody started using it in a different way, including our organization, Sion Breslov. We also use this fire. So he actually created this logo many years ago in Uman. So he told me that he actually knows a person, a Breslauer Chassid, that he had a good friend who was also Breslauer Chassid. And they made it their business to talk every day. Why? Because Rabbi Nachman says the only way for a person to achieve their spiritual potential in their life and to get as close to Hashem as possible is to have sichot chaverim, to have time that you speak to your friends about things that you're going through, things that they're going through, how you were helped, how they could be helped, how you're struggling, because this person has for you many times what you need in order to grow, and also vice versa. To the extent that these two Hasidim that traveled to Uman all the time to be by their Rebbe, they actually, when they got buried at the end of their life, they wanted it, and they got plots next to each other, even though they're not family. They're literally buried right next to each other. You never heard of this? Simply because they wanted sichot chaverim. They want to make sure I'm near my friend. Always. It's the most unbelievable thing. He told me this during Shabbat. I was like, wow, I can't wait to tell the guys. You know, it's like unbelievable. So yeah, let me look at the other questions over here. We'll try to ask some more questions, answer some more questions. What sefer we're learning from? We're learning from Sipuri Masiot. In English, they call it Rabbi Nachman's stories, but I'm specifically drawing inspiration from a Peirush that was written by a Breslauer Chassid from Mei Sharim in Eretz Yisrael, who's very connected to Rav Nassan David Kivak, who I've gotten close to since I got to Eretz Yisrael, and he really opens up the stories in a very unbelievable way. So that was the inspiration for this chabur, and that's where we're learning from. I don't believe this book is available in America, meaning the Peirush that we're learning, but for sure you can get Rabbi Nachman's stories from Rav Aryeh Kaplan in America, and I highly suggest that you do so. Someone asked, the Lost Princess story, why don't you read Sipurei Masiot on Shabbat if it's the highest? I do. That's also part of my Seder. I have a few things that I learn every Shabbat. One of them is Zohar. One of them is Eitz Chaim. And one of them is also Sipurei Masiot. And in fact, it's a very big minhag of Breslovers that they always learn Sipurei Masiot every Shabbat because of this reason. Fed, you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you just, so can you give us a taste of like how it works that we're elevating sparks by maybe focusing on our prayers? It kind of ties into last week, but how is it that when we're focusing on our prayers, we're elevating sparks as opposed to kind of letting our mind drift or thinking about those negative times that we're in?
Sure. Okay, very good. So it's taught in Chassidut and Kabbalah, based on the Zohar, that birur takes place in the mind. That extraction of godliness essentially takes place in one's mind. Okay? If you look at Chazal, you're going to see it's rife with examples and encouragements of having what's called kavanah, intention of the mind, to the extent that it's a Gemara long debate. It's a machloket throughout all of Shas. Does a mitzvah need kavanah? Does a mitzvah need mental, intellectual intentionality, or does it not? Is it good? We know it's good, but do you actually need it? That to the extent that if you don't have it, you're not yotze the mitzvah. And even though we paskin halachically, in some cases you may not need the intention, but it's clear from all of this discussion, and especially more so when you get into even Kabbalah and Chassidut, that the one of the most powerful parts of the mitzvah is the kavanah, is the mindset, is the intentionality that you have in the mitzvah. One of the reasons is because birur, extraction of godliness, essentially takes place in one's mind. So therefore, when I'm going to pray, and all of a sudden Rabbi Nachman says you get distracted by negative thoughts in the middle, whether those thoughts are because they're asur according to the Torah, whether those thoughts are just distracting, whether those thoughts are just a sore topic because they're painful for me, whatever it is, when I come to learn, I come to pray, and then automatically or all of a sudden I start to have these tremendous doubts, even like I have a safek. When I start to come to pray, before I came to pray, I was like on fire. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pray. Hashem is real. Hashem's going to answer me. I just listened to this class for an hour. It's a real thing. And then when I come to pray, all of a sudden a safek hits me as I actually start to put myself into it. Yeah, but like, is Hashem really answering me? Is Hashem really going to help me? Is Hashem really listening to me? That safek is not coming from a place, a random place. That safek is a klipa. The reason why it came down to you is because there's another spark of godliness that's trapped in that place. So Rabbi Nachman says, how do you lift it out? By engaging yourself in a more vocal, in a more verbally intense way, in a more physically expressive way, through clapping, through dancing, through motion of the body, through shuckling, right? Getting your body more into the tefillah, letting yourself feel what you're saying, just meaning the words that you're saying at a deeper level. Intensifying that when the doubt comes in. Not to let yourself sink into the doubt, but as soon as the doubt comes up, there's another spark of godliness. And then you rock into it even more. You fight against it even more. And when you do so, you actually elevate the spark in that place. Why? Because elevation of sparks primarily takes place in one's mind. And this is a very deep concept. We're not going to get into all of the structural, Kabbalistic underpinnings of this. But just suffice it to say, why is it important to not let your mind drift and instead to bring yourself back to the present, to bring yourself back to the reason you came to pray in the first place, or to even intensify that place? It's because the birur takes place in the mind. To the extent that Rabbi Nachman says that if you're not focused and you let yourself drift and you don't bring it back, then that tefillah is not going to have its effect that you're looking for. However, no good thing ever goes away. And therefore, Rabbi Nachman says, when you get to the point that after a period of days or weeks or months of years, you hear some class about the lost princess and you hear what's really going on, and now all of a sudden you're inspired and you understand that this mind drift is not because I have ADD, but this mind drift is because there's a klipa here that I can lift up. So now all of a sudden, when I now intensify myself and I pray with fervor for the first time in my life, knowing that the doubt itself is holding on to sparks of godliness and that's why it's coming, then not only do you get this prayer answered and you extract the spark of godliness in this space, but actually all of those prior tefillahs that, so to speak, never reached their finality, they never reached the highest point in which they can elevate, all of those tefillahs, Rabbi Nachman says, come together and they all get answered at one time. When you have that one heartfelt tefillah, when you enter into that prayer, when you intensify. And this is clear whether you look at the Tanya, Likutei Moharan, or any of the workings of Chassidut, any of the writings of Chassidut, that the greatest time of elevation of sparks comes during the time of tefillah, and that's why they say that the time of tefillah is a time of war. Why is it that King David we know that David HaMelech was known as the mighty warrior. And on the other hand, he says, Ani tefillah, I am prayer. Because these two things are one and the same. Tefillah is not a time of, it's not a time of relaxing, even though it can be very relaxing. Tefillah is mamash a time of war. I'm going to war right now. I know going into it, I'm going to be besieged by many negative thoughts. I'm going to be besieged by many doubts. That is bedavka, specifically the time to intensify the tefillah. Let yourself enter deeper into it. Go against the grain, that even though I have this doubt, I'm going to go harder into the tefillah. And by doing so, I'm elevating up the spark that's in that place.
It's Julie, Fed's wife. Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I feel like the main thing we've been saying is that the lost princess can either be emunah or tefillah. And in the examples in the past two classes, we're focusing on tefillah and how when your mind goes off, like you said, either in a distraction or a negative thought, you need to bring it back and elevate the spark.
Right.
But then there's been a few examples where I feel like we're not only talking about negative thoughts within tefillah, we're also talking about it in our everyday life outside of prayer. So like being distracted at work, or you're taking care of something in the home and your mind goes off to something unrelatable or negative, and how also there's a spark to uplift. And is that a topic that's emet, but outside of the lost princess, meaning those are, because again, I thought the lost princess is either emunah or tefillah, but I would put a third category on it of like moments of just thoughtful distraction.
Yeah, 100%. So this is one of the things about Chassidut and Kabbalah. It's coming to teach that the Torah is true at every level of one's life. And one of the most unbelievable things about Rabbi Nachman's teaching specifically is that they are equally true at every facet of existence, meaning to say that this piece of wisdom is true on a micro-spiritual level, meaning within one person's soul. It's true on the personal level within their life. It's true on the collective level of the Jewish people. It's true on a global level, and so on and so forth. It's true at every one of these places. So we're going to see as this story is going on, like you're bringing up, we're going to bring up multifaceted ways of understanding different characters or different happenings within the Lost Princess. And as was stated, sometimes we're speaking about the Lost Princess as Emunah, Tefillah, and sometimes we're going to be speaking about her as the mechanism for lifting up sparks of godliness, not just within tefillah, but also just in normal everyday life, like when I'm going to work or going grocery shopping, and all of a sudden I start having negative thoughts about why my husband's not doing this instead of me, even though I've been doing this all day. So, yeah, when you bring yourself back to the focus on this place, you lift up the spark in that place. So even though we look at tefillah in a specific kind of narrow way, Rabbi Nachman said, my whole time mission is tefillah. What do you mean your whole mission is tefillah? Well, what about all those other lessons that you give about every other topic? That's also tefillah. Emunah and tefillah is not just when I come to pray. Emunah and tefillah is the process of elevating sparks of godliness. And the way it does so is by going down into darkness. This is all manifested by the character of David in the Torah. Because King David is the archetype of the one who goes down into darkness, has to fight all of the enemies of the Jewish people, which the Hasidic masters means his inner enemies, his personal enemies, his spiritual enemies. And he has to go down and elevate the good from that place. Because he's tefillah, he's emunah. And so therefore, whenever we're in a space, even if it's on a secular or mundane level, or it's just not part of something which seems to be a part of my spiritual life, it is. Every single time that one is distracted by a negative thought, something which is going to pull him down, there's a spark of godliness that's there. And when I make that movement towards not allowing myself to fall into that place of despair, of anger, of jealousy, I understand that, in fact, the fact that I felt that is a good thing, because it's really only a window, a hint to the fact that there's a spark that's trapped here, and I move deeper into thinking a positive thought. That's what elevates it, and therefore it's true at both levels. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And Fed has a comment.
Yeah, no, it's sorry to hijack, but so is this? Can we say that maybe the main focus that we need to have is focusing on what we're doing, whether it's tefillah or a mitzvah, and the kelipot that come from our whole history or whatever it's in our mind, are trying to actually attach ourselves to that action that we're doing that's hopefully good and elevate from that.
Absolutely.
And so from there we're elevating sparks by doing something good, and if we have something that distracts us, we ignore it, but that spark, that kelipa, whatever, anoga, attaches to our good deed, good tefillah, whatever it is, and elevates from that.
You got it, 100%. Rabbi Nachman said that the main strand, the main thread, which attaches all true tzaddikim who ever lived, and that doesn't just mean people who are famous and you have on posters on the wall. When you read Chassidut and you read Kabbalah, you understand that there are hidden tzaddikim, and there are people you would never imagine, just that your neighbor, who's just like cooking in the kitchen. She's a tzaddik. So he says that the one main thread and strand which connects every tzaddik, even though everyone's very different, is he said that none of them think about tomorrow or yesterday. Every single tzaddik who ever lived only thought about Hayom, today. Okay? Why is he saying that? Because the essence of a tzaddik is the one who utilizes emunah to lift up these sparks of godliness. And there's no way to lift them up except by being in the present. And this is the psychological output of this is this new wave of therapy and psychology, which is focused on trying to help a person remain present at all times because they see it psychologically beneficial. But that's only a manifestation, that's only a reflection of a deep spiritual reality. That is, that there's no way for me to achieve the purpose of this moment if I'm not in the moment. And therefore, when I don't do that, I feel a sense of lacking. I feel a sense of being like, unsure, unsafe, not in a place of productivity and joy. And the reason is because I'm not achieving my mission right now. So focusing on the present is essential, because by focusing on the present, you lift up the spark in that place. And any time Rabbi Nachman is teaching that you have a mind shift, that out of nowhere I start to think about the past or I start to think about the future, just reorient yourselves to the present. And by doing so and engaging even deeper in whatever it is that you're doing, you lift up the spark from that place. And ultimately, Rabbi Nachman says those thoughts will go away. So, very good questions. Are you saying that when I'm praying for a lack for a very long time and I don't see any salvation, sparks are being released anyway? Or are they trapped and not elevated until the Yeshua comes? So the answer is both. The answer is both. Rabbi Nachman compares tefillah to giving birth. Just like a person doesn't give birth instantaneously, it takes 9 months. And that period of 9 months actually starts to look like it's getting worse before it's getting better, right? All of a sudden you start to feel nauseous, you start to feel sick, you start to have symptoms that you never had in your life. You're like thinking about, is this the right decision for me? Did I make a mistake? And you start to go through like this whole thing, and you're physically sick, you're emotionally sick. It's just all degrading and falling apart until literally you're in the birth pang itself, and you never had a more painful experience in your life. And then at the very last moment that you feel like you can't take it anymore, new life is born. So when Chava had this era at the beginning of creation, this is what took place, that from now on, spiritual birth, which we're now understanding comes from emunah or tefillah, is only possible through a time-space process. And therefore, when a person prays for things, it takes time for them to get answered. And one of the reasons is because we need to get to the point that we can actually focus deeply on what we're praying for. And that comes with a lot of spiritual work, a lot of work on the Brit Milah and sexual purity, a lot of work on Torah learning, a lot of work on being a good person and trying to elevate your acts of kindness, a lot of hishtadlut. And as time goes on, one of the ways Rabbi Nachman says you could tell if you're growing spiritually is the level of your tefillah. If your level of tefillah is becoming more intense and more focused, then that's a sign that there's growth. But Rabbi Nachman says don't become discouraged if you find that you're seemingly in the same exact place or that your prayers have not gotten answered for a long time. Because even though those sparks didn't elevate all the way up, you did elevate them. But they get swallowed up, he says, by the Sitra Achra. Okay? However, he says that just like a dog, that the dog never gets full. So too the Sitra Achra, even though its negativity is that he attacks with no rachamim whatsoever, and he's constantly swallowing up sparks of godliness with no second thought about it. On the other hand, the Baal Shem Tov teaches, and Rabbi Nachman brings down as well, that as a result of this, it's going to throw up because it can't actually hold all of it. So either way, whether it's from its own volition or because we earn it, the sparks are going to be thrown up. So now Rabbi Nachman teaches, well, who causes the Sitra Achra to throw up these sparks of godliness, meaning that all of those sparks, all of those past tefillahs now get answered and they all get lifted up. So Rabbi Nachman says when a tzaddik does a din tefillah simply means a very, very intense, very explicit, very raw tefillah. That's where my mind and my heart are united as one. That when a person gets to a place that they are praying with such intensity, with such fervor, that itself is what causes the Sitra Achra to throw up all of the previous sparks, along with that tefillah itself. And then there's a birth that's taking place. So this is why the Gemara says that when you're struggling, go to the biggest Talmid Chacham that you know and ask him to pray for someone in your family. So like I asked my son, I said, why would the Torah tell you to do that? Why didn't the Torah just ask you to do it? Right? We know that the ikar of the Torah is that you have a personal relationship with Hashem and you don't need an intermediary. You don't need any type of a force to have that relationship. But on the other hand, there is a concept of a tzaddik. And what makes a tzaddik is his level of emunah. Like the pasuk in Habakkuk says, tzaddik be'emunah tichyeh, that the tzaddik lives with his emunah, meaning with his tefillah. So the greater a tzaddik is, the greater is the intensity of his prayer. That doesn't mean he's shaking back and forth and rocking and you see him rolling on the floor. It means that within his mind, he is the most focused, and within his heart, he is the most intent on helping those around him within the tefillah itself. And that comes from a lot of spiritual work. So this is why you ask the tzaddik to pray for you. But also, like we're explaining now according to Chassidut, everything exists also on a personal level. So that means that you have a tzaddik inside of you. You have a point of godliness inside of you where if you access that space, that place is going to get answered. That place can have a din tefillah. It could pray with such fervor and intensity that it releases all of those prior trap sparks. Are you sure that Zohar, straight Zohar, is still okay to learn these days if under 40 and not too deep? The Zohar and Tikkuni Zohar says explicitly that the redemption is going to come in the merit of the Zohar. And in the introduction to Likutei Moharan, Rabbi Nachman brings this Zohar as the source for why you should learn Likutei Moharan. Why should you learn Chassidut and Kabbalah? Because it's based on the Zohar. And we know that it's going to be the Hilul of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai this week, Hod Shebahod. And the light that he brought is the light that's going to bring the redemption, that's going to bring the Geula. And it doesn't just mean a collective Geula. Also means personal Geula. When am I going to experience a transformation of my life, my circumstances, an elevation from my prior place of anger and sadness and despair and jealousy and ego? When am I going to have an elevation in my physical health and my livelihood? All of that is also going to come from the learning of the Zohar. Okay? To the extent that if you go to any Hasidic master or any real Chassid, they're likely going to tell you, take a time every day that you say passages from the Zohar, even if you don't understand what you're saying. And Rabbi Nachman says in Sichot Haran explicitly that it's very good to say Zohar every day, even if you don't understand, because the way that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai brought down the Zohar is that the language itself, the Lashon of the Zohar is so holy that simply by saying those words, you affect tremendous tikkunim, okay? So I try to do this every day. In the beginning, a lot of it was without understanding. Now, thank God, it's with more. But either way, Rabbi Nachman says, it still hits the mark. So for sure, this is one of the big emphases of Chassidut and Kabbalah, is not to wait. That in the times of Geula, the times of redemption, we need to speed up the process and start now. Obviously, when you're coming to learn deeper texts of Kabbalah, it's very important that you have some type of mashpia, someone who could teach you authentically, genuinely, what it's trying to say, so you don't come away with the wrong message. But in this case, in the learning the Zohar, the purpose, so to speak, of learning this piece is not even to understand it. The purpose is simply the saying of it. Okay, Bezrat Hashem, one day we're going to get into a lesson as to why that's so. It's hard to express what I mean. I think someone just asked in a way that I tried to articulate it, so thanks. What if one can't pray in the moment of klipot? What are other ways that we can lift the sparks? So Rabbi Nachman says that even simply by saying out loud, I can't pray, that's a real prayer. Rabbi Nachman says that when a person is surrounded by darkness, meaning klipot, and the way he knows is because he can't pray, because I can't focus, that is the klipa. This is clear in all of the Torahs of Likutei Moharan and all of the works of Chassidut, that the inability to focus is klipot. That's what's going to be elevated at the end. So how can I work through that? So Rabbi Nachman says it multiple times in Likutei Moharan. In the 9th Torah of Likutei Moharan, he says it. He says it later on in Likutei Moharan. Say the truth. That when a person is shrouded in darkness and they can't find the words to say, they don't know how to focus, they don't know how to cry, they don't know how to really express themselves. Rabbi Nachman says, dig down deep and say the truth. If you say the truth is or, it's light. It's the light of Hashem. So if you say the truth, you automatically will have a tiny crease, a tiny pocket of light, which will exit you from the darkness. Because darkness is sheker, it's lies. It's the klipot that are causing you to feel that you're not worth it, that Hashem's not real, that He's not going to answer me, that I'm going to invest in myself and not get a response, and it's going to be too painful. All of those thoughts are klipas. So how do you get past that? Say the truth. Just dig down deep and say the truth. Hashem, I don't think you're answering me. I want to believe you're going to answer me. Scream it. Is that your truth? Say it. If your truth is Hashem, I've been talking to you for years now. I've been doing this thing called Hibodedut, and my life is a wreck. I'm having troubles at home. I don't have the ability to support myself. I'm still single. I'm having trouble having kids. I don't have peace at home with my family, right? And the list goes on and on and on, and I'm trying so hard. Hashem, I need help. You scream to Hashem. Say the truth. If you say the truth, Rabbi Nachman says you will break through the darkness, because there is a very deep teaching in Chassidut that a little bit of light expels a lot of darkness. Right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke about this a lot. Now, Rabbi Nachman is saying this is bedavka in your tefillah. If you say one true thing, that's a little bit of light. And if you're going to say, but what about all the darkness? The beautiful thing about a little bit of light is it expels all darkness. No matter how much there is, you put a little candle in that room, the whole thing's going to light up. So you want to know, how do I move beyond this place? Say the truth. Say the truth. And if you feel like your truth is a sad truth, or your truth is a despairing truth, that's not the truth. Because there is no yeush in the world at all. There's no despair in the world at all. So say the truth of truths. That there's hope for me, even though I never felt it before. Hashem, I want to feel hope. There's a way out of this place. There's a good ending for me, even though I can't imagine it. Hashem, you have to show it to me. I need your help. If you find that with the truth that you say, you don't break through the darkness, it's because you're not really saying the truth. You got to dig down deeper and say a deeper truth. That maybe I'm just scared to be alone. And maybe the reason why I'm so scared is because I don't really feel like you're here with me. But I want to. I want to. Please. I just saw it yesterday in the class. David did that. And you let him learn a Torah about a nest and a bird and its eggs, and how those people who are sacrificing themselves for the Jewish people, the Shekhinah is with them and never leaves from them. And then he woke up in the morning and you showed him a nest with a bird. Do the same thing for me. I'm your daughter. I'm your son. Nobody's more valuable to Hashem than anybody else. We're all His children. Hashem, show me you're with me. Give me courage. Give me inspiration. Let me know so I can keep trying, so I can go harder for you. Go back to those tefillahs that I tried to make up based on the Torahs that we learned. Turn the Torah that we're learning now into tefillah. This is the big one. How do I focus? Make up your own tefillah, that it's coming from your own heart. But speak out the truth, meaning take the Torah that you're learning, which is the truth, turning it into your own tefillah. Okay. Everybody have an amazing, amazing day. Oh, someone asked about Zohar, not Chassidut. No, for sure you should learn Chassidut also. This is in some ways more Ikar, okay? But also in addition, learn a little bit of Zohar. With the Chassidut, you should try to understand what you're learning. We just did an hour of it. But when it comes to the Zohar, it can literally be without understanding. Obviously, if you understand, all the better. But just saying it out loud, okay? Take a little bit of time every day to do this. Hashem should bless you. We should have an amazing week. We should have amazing Lag BaOmer. We should mamish feel the or of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Same gematria as Nachman ben Simcha, Rabbi Nachman ben Fega, the Tzaddik Yisur Olam, who tried to bring in a further expression of the light of the Zohar, to hammer it into our hearts, that it shouldn't be some type of existential philosophy that there's sparks and there's godliness and there's Hashem and there's me, but it should be mamish, like a real felt experience every day that I'm living with Hashem. I'm living with Him in my thoughts and my feelings and my actions, that, like Rabbi Nachman says, a moon is in my fingertips. Mamish, live with it. We should all have experience personal and collective geula. There should be a healing for all the people who are struggling physically and spiritually. And we should be one, because we learned from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that the way that we receive the greatest revelations of Torah is through love, is through loving every Jew no matter what. And this is the vessel for receiving the Torah. And we learn this by Shavuot, because the original Matan Torah, it said that the Jewish people were like one man with one heart. It wasn't just a historical anecdote. That was the precursor to receiving higher consciousness. When we love each other unconditionally, no matter what we have done or someone else has done, we're starting from that space, we're starting from that place. And especially your brothers and sisters in arms who are trying on the road with you to do the same. You are literally speeding up the redemption. You're speeding up the Geula. You're making yourself and the whole Jewish people a organism, a vessel which can receive higher consciousness, the Das that needs to spread through the world like water covers the sea, the Torah of the Mashiach, the secrets of secrets, the secrets of Atik Yomin, of ancient days. Everybody have an amazing week.